the 16th, demanding that the Red Army be allowed to take possession of the entire territory of the countries. The government acquiesced, then they demanded the new government be formed. I'll never forget what President Päts said. It was a very short speech, and we were all listening to the radio in our flats, standing up. We were crying as we listened, and he was so very right when he said that the Estonian Republic, that is to say, 1 million people, could not resist a country that numbered 180 million at that time, and that we had to suffer. We had to suffer.
Kus on 180 miljonit tol ajal oli. Ja peame kannatama. Ja peame kannatama.
Tuli siis kätte 21. juuni.
Then came June the 21st, 1940. We were at the bank before the end of office hours. One of the clerks looked out of the window to see who was coming. We all gathered at the window to see, and there they came, a red flag in front and a group of 40 to 50 people. We didn't understand what was going on. There were about 30 to 40 women who worked at a flax mill and about 10 local communists. Some of the women were crying, so they didn't seem enthusiastic about the coup d'etat. Soon a telegram arrived saying that there had been an uprising in Tallinn and that a new government was being formed. The occupation forces formed a leftist puppet government headed by Vares. The communists were only allowed to organize demonstrations on the 21st of July in 12 settlements in Tallinn, Tartu and Vändra. President Päts remained at his post until the 22nd of July. He confirmed the arrangements and regulations of the occupying power. He signed all the papers submitted to him. The occupation forces rigged elections of the Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian parliaments on the 14th and 15th of July. A single communist candidate was allowed to run in each constituency. They claimed fraudulently in Estonia that they received 92.8% of the votes cast. I was forced to become a member of the electoral committee. All the teachers had to do so. People came to vote because they were afraid, for by then people were already being arrested.
Nad kartsid. Jah. Siis juba arreteeriti inimesi.
We were told to bear in mind that anyone who wasn't for them was against them. Some of them did try to help people. They urged us to keep our mouths shut.
Ja siis eriti tähendab, mida nad soovitasid, et pidage ometi oma suud kinni.
Nowhere in the electoral propaganda had anyone mentioned changes of policy or that independence should be brought to an end. Quickly, on July the 17th, a demonstration took place, including a slogan, "We demand that Estonia join the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics." The newly constituted lower house of the Estonian Parliament was convened from July 21st to the 23rd, replete with red flags, posters, portraits of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin, the loud yelling of slogans and tumultuous ovations. Decisions were taken in favor of proclaiming Soviet power, of requesting that Estonia be incorporated into the Soviet Union, to nationalize land, the banks, and large industry, despite the fact that Estonia had no large industry. A delegation of the lower house of the Estonian Parliament traveled to Moscow to request acceptance into the Union. One of the slogans on the train said, "Liberated Estonia greets the invincible Soviet Union." On August 6th, the Supreme Soviet of the USSR assigned Estonia the status of a Union Republic. It was Johannes Lauristin, Secretary of the Central Committee of the Estonian Communist Party, who spoke at the session of the Supreme Soviet and proposed that this be done. The Red Year began, but Soviet power was never really completely established. Instead of Soviets, only executive committees were set up. Veteran Estonian communists were used as cadres, along with so-called July communists, Estonians who had been living in Russia as fellow travelers. Even before the formal incorporation, Estonia's clocks were reset to Moscow time. The party declared that the national economy must be reorganized according to socialist principles, that the machinery of state must be strengthened, and workers retrained in accordance with communist ideas. The new regime began to take over enterprises. The Estonian crown was pegged to the ruble at a low rate. Prices and wages rose, but real wages sank significantly. Harsher working conditions were imposed, similar to those of large socialist countries. Secretaries of the Central Committee of the Estonian Communist Party, Neeme Ruus and Johannes Lauristin, and First Secretary Karl Säre, 3 smiling comrades. As a member of the big family of the peoples of the Soviet Union, Estonian youth can freely celebrate its Day of Youth under the protection of the glorious Red Army. In the curriculum of Soviet schools, Russian is the first language. Hello, children, take your seats. We will continue the lesson. Elmo, come here. Tell us what time it is now. It's 7 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. Now you ask. Irmela, what time is it? It's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. Throughout Soviet Socialist Estonia, implementation of land reform is in progress. New boundaries appear in the fields, delineating new farmsteads. Without exception, the people are inspired by this Bolshevist land reform, which abolishes speculation in land and allows true farmers to work in their own fields. 50,000 homesteaders obtained land, practically everyone who so desired. People were insistently urged to apply for land. Among them were elderly people, craftsmen of 80 years and older, who never really intended to become farmers. Homesteads of 10 and 11 hectares were established with 1 cow and a horse. These households were never intended to reach prosperity. The size of a farm was limited to a maximum of 300 hectares.
Põllumajandusminister oli Jõeäär.
Jõeäär was the Minister of Agriculture, and he wrote in a newspaper, "People are talking about establishing collective farms, but I assure you that there will be nothing of the kind. No one will be deprived of his own property. You can all feel safe at your work. There will be no such thing." Suddenly the people found themselves in a schizophrenic society. The gap between ominous reality and shameless lying propaganda was tremendous. People had to march in processions carrying the portraits of the new leaders. The totalitarian state was forging plowshares into swords. I remember a meeting of bank officials in the month of April, and the vice president of the bank was present. He had come from Moscow. Zhabrev was his name. So Comrade Zhabrev gave a speech about the international situation, and he ended it with the words, "War between the Soviet Union and the capitalist countries is inevitable and necessary." In April 19